May 21st, 1999, at about 4:15 in the morning, I was on midnight shift. We got a call of a domestic dispute between a mother and her juvenile son, is what the dispatcher told us, and that the mother had escaped out of a window and had gone to another house and called the police. When I first saw the mother, it was kind of strange. She was a very small lady, looked to me to be about 70 years old. We talked to her, and she basically told us that her son had been having mental problems and that she just wanted to get him some help. But she said, he's just been scaring me tonight, and I really want you guys to go in there and try to get him to the hospital so he can get some help. I said, okay, how old is your son? She said, well, he's 45 years old. I said, okay, and we said, well, did he have any weapons? And she said, well, he may have something sharp because he cut the phone lines. It was very dark. There were no lights on in the house whatsoever. The only thing shining on the house was an outside street light. And that's pretty much what we were using for light. So it was kind of an eerie feeling, because we didn't see, didn't hear anything. We had no communication with him whatsoever. And at one point we knocked on the door real hard with a nightstick and heard him walking inside. We just heard a couple of footsteps on the inside, so we knew he was in there. And we knew that he was moving around, but he didn't say anything whatsoever. My supervisor at the time, he's a really big guy, pushed up on the window. He said, I can't push it up any further, and I can't get through because the hole's too small. Jeff, can you get through? And I said, yeah, I can get through that. So he took me by the foot, pushed me in. I landed on a bed that was laying there. Got up, took my gun out. Officer Love, my partner, came in behind me. And still, everything was completely quiet. We heard nothing, didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. And the door to the bedroom was totally shut, which led out into a hallway. And in front of the door, there was all kinds of boxes and things where she had barricaded herself inside of this bedroom to try to keep him away. I went through the hallway first. His bedroom was off to the left-hand side. Mother was still outside. The house was very small, so we could still hear her talking. And she said, his bedroom's off to the left. You might want to check there. So I walked to the left. Officer Love checked to the down the hallway, which led to a living room area and things like that. There was a couple rooms down the hallway, bathrooms. But I checked the bedroom, didn't see anything. So we're clear back here. Still, we were calling his name, Vincent's police. We just want to get you some help. Still nothing. We didn't hear anything. No movement. Nothing. There were no lights on. We were just going by the light of our flashlight, pretty much, and the street light that was shining in. As I turned to walk down the hallway, I was parallel with the bedroom that we walked into the hallway from. Officer Love was parallel, standing about right here to me, to a bathroom. I heard about 3 very large, loud footsteps coming down the hallway at me. Looked up, and I saw what appeared to me at that point in time to be a giant with a butcher knife coming down on us just like this. I fired 2 shots, and time stood still. And after I fired my shots, time just stood still for 1 second, and he just disappeared for just a second. And as he disappeared, when things started coming back, I heard my partner to my side start groaning. And I looked at him and I said, did you get hit? And he said, yeah, I got hit in the stomach. And I looked back to my supervisor and I said, Corporal, you got to get in here. I think I just hit Perrin. I remember I took my vest off because I could feel my heart just hitting my vest so hard. I walked in the bathroom and took it off. And I went down to the office of the police chief. There were some other lieutenants and higher ranking officers in there with me. And he basically told me that we don't really know what to do in the situation. We're here for whatever you need. We'll fly anybody here. We'll get your family here. Whatever you need. But your partner passed away.
A critical incident perhaps can be understood as any situation where one has the potential to be overwhelmed by his or her sense of vulnerability and or lack of control. We all know we're vulnerable. We all know we can be killed. We can be hurt. But usually on a day-to-day basis, we don't worry about it. But after getting involved in a critical incident where indeed you believed you were going to die, or you witnessed some horrible violence, or somebody who you know seriously injured or killed, well, emotionally, you have to come to grips with your own sense of vulnerability. Now the emotional impact hits. And closely related to that is the concept of control. We all want to believe we're in control of situations as they arise. But critical incidents occur beyond our control. And how do we feel knowing bad stuff can occur and there's nothing we can do about it? Vulnerable. So when we're talking about a critical incident, we're talking about coming face to face with your sense of vulnerability.
There are certainly signs and symptoms that other law enforcement officers can see in their fellow law enforcement officers. Probably the biggest one is people withdrawing, kind of moving away from relationships that they've had, being a little bit more quiet, not as outgoing, maybe some feelings of guilt at the same time, maybe being more irritable, being able to get really angry about relatively minor things. Those are probably some of the things that would come up first. Maybe a lack of a willingness to get involved in some things, or maybe some fear about getting involved in some things, kind of holding back, whereas before they might have been a hard charger. Those are some typical kinds of things.
The South Carolina Law Enforcement Assistance Program is a partnership between 4 state agencies, SLED, DNR, DPS, and the probation agency. We also serve local agencies around South Carolina. We do that because the statute that governs what we do provides for that and says any local agency in our state can call on this program during times of critical incidents or tragedy. One of the things we discovered early on, we did a lot of critical incident stress management all across the state, psychological first aid, followed up with agencies doing one-on-one care with the peer support team, doing what are called diffusings, doing debriefings, referring officers for further care and support, doing follow-up with them. But there was something that we needed to add to that program, and that was a very formal follow-up for officers who felt kind of stuck after their critical incident. What do I mean by that? Well, officers who had images frozen or burned in their brain from a line-of-duty death where they were present, or the suicide of a friend in law enforcement, or a chase that they were involved with where someone was hurt or killed, or going to a terrible traffic accident where children died. We found that officers, for the majority of officers and non-sworn personnel in the agencies we were dealing with, that they did fine. But there was a certain population among the officers who would say by their own admission, you know, I'd like to come and talk more about this. And they would describe this sense of stuckness with these particular issues, or some image they kept seeing, or having difficulty sleeping. Symptoms connected to, reactions connected to their critical incident, specific incident. That's where the post-critical incident seminar comes in.
The FBI found that there were many of the people that were involved in shootings and so forth that we were involved in that were having real difficulty with the after effects of the shooting. So we started looking for a way to try to work with those people and to get them back to some sense of normalcy. And the post-critical incident seminar is a development that came out of that research and that work. And we found that it worked not only with shooters, with people involved in shootings, but it also worked with many various traumatic events that people would experience. So we expanded the PCIS to where we work with all kinds of trauma that people were exposed to, including those who were vicariously traumatized by being at events such as airplane crashes and where we had to work with the bodies and so forth. And we found it very effective to quickly get the agents and then later their families back to some semblance of normalcy.
In 1983, the FBI began this model, so more than 20 years ago, and what they said was, let's bring in our agents and our task force members who've been through heavy-duty critical incidents, who are in some way still wrestling with those in their present vocation, in their present life, in their work as a cop. So they began to bring in agents and task force members. Soon they began to bring in the spouses of those officers. They began to bring in non-sworn personnel who had had either on-the-job heavy-duty events, critical incidents, or in their personal life, maybe a traffic accident or the untimely death of a loved one. And the post-critical incident seminar, what they started back in the early 1980s, is something we have taken and now adapted to our local situation, where we bring state and local officers in for a 3-day seminar, the purpose of which is to help them work through issues and reactions related to specific critical incidents in their work life and their personal life.
So the post-critical incident seminar is a multi-day seminar, usually 3 days, where the officer has the opportunity to get with other officers who've been through a critical incident to talk about it, to learn about stress, trauma, and coping.
Law enforcement officers are human beings. They experience a wide range of events, both on the job and off the job. And certainly one of the most pressing things that's off the job a lot of times is relationship. The relationship they have with their wife or children or maybe their parents. And sometimes that can become a problem. The loss of a spouse, for example, while it's not law enforcement related, it's certainly human related, and it would certainly have a huge impact on the person to whom that occurred. And again, they're not John Wayne. They're a human being just like the rest of us, and that's going to have an impact on their life. They have to realize that, and getting to a mental health professional about something like that, or a divorce, for example, or child custody concerns, or law enforcement officer who killed a suspect and then might be arrested himself because there's a question about the shooting. Was it a good shooting or questionable or whatever? Those are all things that are going to cause trauma. And trauma isn't just related to what you do as a job. Trauma is related to what happens to you as a human being and how you perceive that.
Go ahead, 125.
Fairmont at Leesburg, South Carolina 562, November Delta Hotel 562 NDH. A green Ford Bronco, occupants undetermined, reason for stop, no turn signal.
Route 125, copy.
Central, 125, I've been shot. Central 120, 115, 20.
Fairmont and Leesburg, Fairmont and Leesburg.
120 up.
Oh, yeah, just have an officer down, deputy down, Leesburg.
121 up.
Fairmont, Leesburg and Fairmont, type 1.
508 from Green Lawn Garnet Ferry. Fairmont, lead them up.
People generally react to traumatic situations by a lot of times trying to deny that it's really a problem, particularly law enforcement. Law enforcement's kind of known for kind of taking on that John Wayne attitude in the past. I think that's changing, and that's a good thing. PCIS has a great peer team, and all you have to do is let somebody know that you're having some problems, and somebody will be there. A lot of times you don't even have to let that be known. A lot of times they know what's going on, and they know what's happening in your head, and they'll get somebody there to talk to you. And the best thing you can do is be open to that and be willing to talk about it. And, let whatever happens happen, and talk about that. Well, I think the PCIS model is absolutely great. I mean, here you have mental health professionals on one side, you have law enforcement on the other side. Not that they're angry at each other or there's any problem between each other, but they're just different sets of professionals. And then you have the peer team that's kind of the bridge between that. The peers are the people who have law enforcement backgrounds, and at the same time they also have a background in the EMDR. They have been through trauma themselves. They have experienced what EMDR can bring to them and how that can help them change. And at the same time, they can speak law enforcement and mental health. So in a way, they're a way to say to the law enforcement guys and gals that this is something that can really help you. I've been through it. I've experienced it. You can get the same kind of relief that I got. And it's just a good way of helping law enforcement and mental health shake hands so that they can come together and create something that is going to be very, very helpful to law enforcement. And I think the South Carolina Law Enforcement Assistance Program is absolutely one of the best in bringing that together. And I certainly applaud them for what they're doing.
When I went through the seminar, of course, I was kind of like everybody else that attends it. You don't know exactly why you're there. You don't know exactly what you're looking forward to. Some people think it's a shrink session where you're going to talk to psychiatry, or somebody thinks that it's going to be a religious experience. And I kind of just went in with an open mind, thinking, you know, that this is something that's supposed to help. And after completing the 3-day seminar, it was like I had new life. I was a new person. I went through group sessions with other officers that have been in similar situations as myself, and it really brings you to a better understanding of why your incident occurred and where your part stood in the incident. And after that week, I just really became a true believer in what the process of this seminar was doing. And at that time, I recontacted Eric Skidmore and requested to know exactly how I could get trained to help out as a peer team member. I went through several months of training at different aspects of critical incident, everything from initial contact to group therapy and stuff like that. And once we completed that, then I became a peer team member and started coming to the critical incident seminars as a peer team member in 2003, and have been coming ever since. And it's just that sense of seeing the transition that a person who's been involved in a critical incident, this 3-day transition, that their whole world can change in a matter of 3 days is absolutely incredible. And the things that they learn here, they can take back and hopefully spread that to their own departments.
Other things happen in the seminar as well. One of the things is they meet peers from all over our state and other states who come in for the purpose of supporting them, make lifelong friendships. They receive top-notch training from clinical personnel trained at a PhD level to help them in their work as law enforcement officers, to help them in their life as a spouse of a law enforcement officer. They also have access to therapeutic kind of care, something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. For those who are viewing this, they can view more about it on the website, and we'll give that to them. But eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is a technique, a therapeutic technique done by licensed professional counselors, and it helps officers overcome that sense of stuckness often for specific critical incidents that they've been involved with. In a matter of a few sessions, they can work with a therapist, work with a counselor who's part of our peer support team, and in many ways move that issue that's stuck. Psychologists will say it's dysfunctionally stored in their brain. It's frozen in their brain in a particular way, and that's why they keep re-experiencing. They dream about it, they think about it, and in the context of this post-critical incident seminar, dealing with other cops, dealing with mental health professionals, they can get that kind of care. And we see just tremendous relief from that. You might say, is this an accepted mental health practice? Well, I will say yes, it is. It's used by the Department of Defense with veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. It's used by law enforcement agencies all over the country, other agencies dealing with first responders. Very effective technique for dealing with specific critical incidents that get dysfunctionally stored in the brain and trip up an officer. We often say it sort of rents some space in your brain for a while and can make your work uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very much of a skeptic when it comes to things like that. So I'd never heard of it. I'm a psychology major, and I'd never heard of EMDR, and I was like, what is this they're talking about? I just thought it was kind of weird. But I did volunteer to do it and try it out, and I was impressed. I felt like it actually helped me a lot. There were some images in my head whenever I would replay the incident that would just get stuck. I'd get stuck on a certain image and I couldn't get past it, and I couldn't really focus on the entire incident. I could only remember the incident up to a certain point, and I would get stuck there and I'd start the whole incident over again in my head. But the EMDR actually helped me to work through that image and remember the entire incident, which was really helpful to me.
The post-critical incident seminar, you might ask yourself, if you're an administrator, we hear officers and they say, my agency, after my critical incident, they treated me very well. The sheriff or the chief came to see me in the hospital or came by my house or called me. And then there are other officers who say, my agency treated me as if it didn't happen, or they treated me as an outsider, and that's how it felt. Research shows over and over again one of the critical points of a police officer recovering, making it back on the road, developing resiliency, is the concern of the administration, the concern of their chief or their sheriff. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, why not use a post-critical incident seminar as a way of saying, I care about you. I want you to be the best you can in your law enforcement career. I want you to be on our team, and I want you to go to this seminar. So it, in many ways, is a win-win situation. It's a win for the officer and his or her family, and it's a win for the administration of the department, because it's a way to help that officer get a sense of normalcy, feel like they're back up to doing everything that they're being asked to in their agency.
What happens on the first day, a lot of them are coming in not by choice. You know, they're ordered here. And like us 13 Secret Service agents, I mean, they don't want to be there. They don't see any reason to be there. So we see a lot of body language. You know, the old closed arms, the scowl on the face, the crossed legs, saying, I don't want to be here. I'm not going to get anything out of this. Well, on the end of the third day, you see a total transformation. I mean, they're talking, they're happy, they can talk about their event, and it won't have the same emotional impact on them. We see a 180-degree turnaround here. The individuals who come and really participate, take advantage of what we're offering. Might take a while to get them to that point, to accept it. But we do that by having peers who've been through who've been through PCISs previously, who come out at the first day and talk about how it helped them. And once we can get the peers talking, then the people who are attending for the first time, they say, well, if this cop went through it and he's much better, then maybe I'll go ahead and give it a shot and see what happens. So I see a great change in these people.
As I tend to say, sometimes you need to unload your bucket. And that's why this particular program has been so useful to a lot of people, myself included, that it's a place where you can come, open up, unload your bucket, and go back. And a lot of people are not just carrying a bucket, but they're carrying that 55-gallon drum that I talk about, and they just don't know. That's the problem.
To come down here and not only be in the setting and speaking with everybody during the program, but then to be with, I think at this point, 30 or 40 other officers that have also been through it, and to speak with them outside of this incident, and to talk to them and have them talk to you, and realize that other people go through this, that there is a sense of normalcy that we can get back to, and for all of us to basically be each other's support was incredible. It's a feeling that I haven't had since the incident, and very appreciative of the staff here and the people that were here going through it with me.
I have not heard of anybody who complained, and were still complaining on the third day, that they were here either by ordered or seeing the program and talking to their chief or sheriff or their colonel and saying, I'd like to go. We don't see anybody that really dreaded coming here at the end.